/ The Duke's reply read, "That insolent." The message was brief. It was also, in every conceivable way, an insult. The Emperor had been prepared to invoke the full authority of his name, to declare the Duke of the West's fiancée a saint before the entire empire, to have every soul within it honor her as such. He had offered the man a concession that cost him genuine pride. And this was what came back. The Emperor crumpled the letter and ground his teeth. Should we move against the Duke of the West again, have him brought in? The Emperor muttered, face dark with frustration. Behind him, the butler spoke carefully. Since the Duke of the West shows no sign of moving, it may be wiser to keep him under observation for now, Your Majesty. The Emperor's attention shifted. And the abdication proposal for the Crown Prince, why has nothing come of it? The butler's expression fell, almost imperceptibly. He kept his voice even. I understand the Prime Minister is speaking with the nobles. Speaking with them? I gave him a direct order, why does he need to speak with them? I apologize, Your Majesty. Tell the Prime Minister to submit the abdication proposal without further delay. That would be premature, Your Majesty. The butler answered with perfect composure, though his eyes betrayed nothing. The Emperor exhaled sharply, his brow knitting. There's no other way, the West has extended its reach even further. He straightened. Fetch Lady Audria and bring her to me. The butler's eyes widened slightly. Your Majesty, that will not be a simple matter. I don't care how you manage it, just bring her. As you wish, Your Majesty. The butler answered with quiet resignation and withdrew. / A still night. The moon was swallowed behind heavy clouds, and even the insects had gone silent. Alcivet stared up at the sky, black and depthless as an open void, and swallowed against the heaviness in his chest. Word had reached him quickly, as it always did, the Emperor wanted Lady Audria brought to him. He had endured everything until now. Ignored what was done to him. Stayed his hand, because the Emperor was his father. Because the Emperor was the ruler of the empire. But there was Dia now. He had made a choice to protect her with everything he had. A long, tangled breath left him. The Emperor had lost his capacity to govern. The nobility was fracturing. The empire was in danger. He was the Crown Prince. He could not afford to tremble any longer. If he went on watching, if he did nothing, he would be no different from the man he was watching. Alcivet closed his eyes. He held them shut for a long moment, letting go of something he had carried for a long time. When he opened them again, the habitual warmth in his golden eyes had been replaced by something clearer and harder. Bring Commander James Miller to me. Yes, Your Highness. Kusai, his butler, recognized the unfamiliar weight in the Crown Prince's expression and bowed deeply before withdrawing. A short while later, James, commander of the Imperial Palace Guard, entered the room. You sent for me? Commander. James's posture shifted almost imperceptibly at the title. The Crown Prince always called him teacher when it was a private matter. Commander meant something else. It meant this was official. His Majesty's mind has been compromised by illness. A shadow moved across James's face. He had felt it himself, that the Emperor was not the man he had been, but hearing it spoken plainly by the Crown Prince settled in his chest like a stone. I am leaving this place. James went still. Defying the Emperor's orders. Breaking house arrest. Do you understand why I addressed you as commander tonight? A pause. Yes, Your Highness. This was a question of allegiance. Whether to follow the Emperor, or the Crown Prince. James had no doubt, none, that if Alcivet took the throne, he would be the kind of king this empire needed. But he had not yet inherited it by any lawful path. The Crown Prince rose and walked forward. Something in his bearing had changed. It was the walk of a man who had already decided, and was done being stopped. James stood for a moment in the conflict of it, then stepped quickly into the Crown Prince's path. Is that what Commander means? He looked up into those cold, certain golden eyes, and something in James's expression shifted, something sad, something that had already made its choice. I'll deal with the knights at the gate. Please wait a moment, Your Highness. Proceed. James swallowed a rueful almost smile and went. _____*. The moon remained hidden. The night was profoundly dark. Alcivet slipped through a route he had memorized on a previous visit and entered the grounds of the Western Duke's residence. He had come this way once before, to meet with the Duke, and had instead overheard a quiet exchange between Marin and Diameter. The memory surfaced briefly, softening the set of his face before it hardened again. He was here for the same man, but he was not the same person who had stood in this garden then. The moment he stepped into the garden, he sensed it, a presence, steady and waiting. He looked ahead. A figure materialized from the dark, unhurried, as if he had been standing there all along. I greet the Crown Prince. The Duke of the West's voice carried no surprise. He had been expecting him. His form seemed to belong to the darkness, but his gray eyes were clear. Alcivet drew a slow breath. The humid summer air filled his lungs and released. He chose his words and said them. Duke of the West. I want to protect Diameter. But I can only think of one way to do it. One way that actually works. Alcivet extended his hand toward the Duke of the West. And then the moon slid from behind its cover of clouds, briefly, and cast its pale light across the garden, illuminating the Crown Prince's outstretched hand. The Duke of the West looked down at it. By extending your hand like this. His gray gaze rose to meet Alcivet's, silent. Alcivet did not lower his hand. I want to become emperor. Will you help me? Is this your choice alone? The question was precise, not the nobles pressing you, not the current driving you, yours? The night air stirred, cool against the back of Alcivet's neck, damp with the tension he'd been carrying for weeks. He looked at the Duke of the West and smiled, quietly. With certainty. It is only mine. Only then did the Duke of the West lift his hand and take the Crown Prince's in a firm grip. I was waiting for that answer. Something in Alcivet's chest eased, the long-held tightness of it loosening all at once. He had expected to be pressed, as the other nobles had pressed him. He had expected conditions, urgency, the careful maneuvering of men who wanted something from him. The Duke of the West had simply waited. Until Alcivet was ready to choose for himself. Alcivet spoke quietly, holding down the feeling that rose from somewhere too deep to name. Thank you. I'll hear that later. The moon slipped back behind the clouds. Their joined hands were swallowed by the dark. _____*. Across the capital, noble houses were quietly calling in their private forces. There was no time to spare. If the emperor grew impatient and forced the crown prince's abdication before they could act, the entire plan collapsed. The emperor had to be removed while Alcivet still held his position. A taut, breathless tension settled over the gathered nobles. History was about to turn on what they did before dawn. Edina looked at the commander of the Eastern Duke's Knights, her expression iron. Move at first light. Yes, Your Grace. Smith turned to the Southern Knights commander with an expression caught between apology and gratitude. I'm sorry to ask this of you so soon after everything. We follow our master, the commander replied simply, bowing his head. That is all. Thank you. The fault is mine, I failed to protect him sooner. The commander's face was resolute. I will see this through. ______*. The emperor's study. He stood at the window, staring out at a darkness that gave nothing back. He had not slept properly in days, but tonight was different. The walk to his bedchamber had felt impossibly far, and so he had simply stayed, sinking back into his chair until the weight of the night pressed him to the window. The black sky felt like something closing in. Strangely, he missed it tonight, the sun. He felt as though he could only breathe when it was there. As though without it, there was nothing to hold the world together. He raised one hand and pressed it against his chest, where something felt constricted, and turned as a knock came at the door. "Your Majesty." "What news of Lady Audria?" He asked it, still facing the window. "We have not been able to reach her, Your Majesty." "Useless. All of you, useless." The Emperor's voice tightened. "Where is the commander? Have him brought here, drag him if you must." Something lit behind his eyes, the desperate clarity of a man who felt he could not breathe until he had at least one piece of the West in his hands. The butler looked at him with quiet, helpless pity, then lowered his gaze. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'll find Commander Miller." Just as the butler turned to deliver the order, the office door opened. He turned. His eyes went wide. "Your Highness?"